Hello YouTube, I am back with another Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do a car game in Blender, or a vehicle suspension is what I'll probably actually call it. So first, before we get started, let's get a look at the final product. So this is what we're going to have. We have a chassis here and a couple of wheels just sort of around it, and we can hit play. And we see we can turn the car and we can drive around. We have suspension running around, and we can even go off this ramp here. So to get started, we're going to go up to File, New, Reload Startup File. We're going to switch from Blender Render to Blender Game in the top center. Split our 3D window. The new window is going to be a text editor. And then we're going to need to import the 3 scripts that are in the description. So text, open text block. We're going to do the 3 scripts. So I have them all in the same folder here. So the first one is CarSetup.py. Text, open text block. The second one is Powertrain or Suspension. Doesn't really matter which one you import first. And finally, Suspension. Next, we're going to change this bottom window into a logic editor. And now we're going to make our car. So we're going to start off by sizing it down by half, the main cube, so 0.5. And I'm then just going to kind of stretch it around until it gets this kind of car chassis look that I want. Going to bring that up above the grid and enter edit mode. And now I'm going to want to move the origin of the object to where I believe the center of mass should be for the car. So for this car, it would be right here in the bottom center like that. Next, we're going to add an always sensor, and we're going to add a AND controller and a Python controller. And we can wire that always sensor into both of those. On the Python controller, we're then going to attach the CarSetup.py script. We're then going to add a state actuator, and we're going to wire that one into the AND controller. And this is going to set it to the second state. So now we need to create the second state. So we're going to hit this little plus here. And we're going to select visible on the second state. We're going to add another always sensor, add an AND controller, and a Python controller. We're then going to wire that always sensor into both of those controllers. This Python controller is going to be attached to the Suspension.py script. And then we're going to add yet another state actuator. And that's going to be wired into the AND controller, and this will set it to the third and final state. Now in the third state, we're going to need to add a lot of sensors. This is where we're going to do all of the motion for the car. So we're going to add a keyboard sensor. This first one is going to be named gas. This is going to be the W key with pulse mode. You can actually use any key you want, just make sure it is named gas like that. Next, we're going to add reverse. This is going to be the S key with pulse mode on. Next, we're going to add brake, which is actually going to be the same for me here. Pulse mode on. We're then going to add in left, which is going to be A, pulse mode on. Another keyboard sensor. This one's going to be named right. It's going to be D, pulse mode on. Another keyboard sensor. This one is going to be called E brake, capital E and B there. And this one's going to be the space bar, pulse mode on. We're then also going to add an always sensor with pulse mode on. We are then going to add a Python controller and wire all of those sensors into that Python controller. We're then going to link this Python controller to run the Powertrain script. Now there are 2 properties that we need to add to our chassis here. The first one is going to be turn, and this is just simply displaying what our current turn angle is. The other one is going to be speed, and that is the current speed that we're going. So next we need to add our wheels and some ground. So we're going to hit Shift A, add mesh and cylinder. I'm going to drop the number of vertices down to 12, but that can be whatever you want. I'm then going to move him over here and scale him on the z-axis so he's skinnier, and then I'm going to also scale the whole thing by half, so you can hit S.5 to do that. I'm then going to enter edit mode and hit RY90 to rotate it on the y-axis by 90 degrees. I'm then going to duplicate this wheel 3 times to make 4 wheels total. And these wheels can actually go anywhere. It doesn't actually matter because we are going to be repositioning them in the script. What does matter, however, is their name. So this wheel I'm going to name FL wheel. Just like that, capital F, capital L, capital W. Next one is going to be the RL wheel, which is rear left, and this one is front left. Next, I'm going to do the FR wheel, and the final one, which is going to be the RR wheel. Next, we're going to go into the physics tab for all of these wheels, and we're going to switch all of the wheels to no collision. So just like that, select the wheel, switch it from static to no collision. We're then going to select the chassis and set it to rigid body, turn on no sleeping, and collision bounds we will set to convex hull. So next we need to add a ground for the car to land on, so we're going to hit Shift A, add mesh plane, and scale it up, give us some space to drive around on. If we hit play, nothing happens. Let's check why that is. So we do window, toggle system console. Okay, so we see KX game object key vehicle ID does not exist. I believe, yes, we have not actually told it an initial state to start in, so it was running this state with this script running first right away. And what we actually need is we need this state with the car setup script to run first. So here on the state setup, we can hit initial on the first one, so it'll always start in the first one. Now if we hit play, we see all of the wheels snap in, and we can drive, but it flies off really fast. So another thing is we want to set up the mass to our car, so let's make it weigh a little bit more. So let's try a mass of 400, because cars are pretty heavy. So let's try with that. And now we can see our car does drive around, but maybe the wheels aren't set up exactly how you want, or the speed is maybe a little fast, or something's just not right with it. I'm going to show you how to customize the scripts to make it a little better, to make it however you want it to be. So if you're fine at this point, you can go ahead and leave, and thank you guys for watching. However, if you want to see how to customize your car scripts to make it act the way you want it to be, stick around. So we're going to start at the start with CarSetup.py. So we're going to hit syntax highlighting and line numbers, just to make it easier for you guys to follow along. And we're going to scroll down. This code is really well commented. So we're going to scroll down until we see some lists, some numbers here. So this is going to be the starting position of the wheels. Now there is one that you never want to change. This z-axis should always be 0. Why is that? Because if you set it up higher, say you wanted your car to ride higher in the air, for instance, that's still too high. Oh, that's the wrong way. Let's go -10. We will see the wheels just simply fly through the field. They don't even sense a collision with the field. The higher that number is, the more likely, or the bigger this number is, the more likely it is to fall through the ground. Whereas if you have it at 0, you'll see they do collide with the ground and everything is fine. So then we have the x-axis here and the y-axis here for each of the wheels. So we can say we want it to be out further from the car. Let's say we want the front tires to be further forward. So we can change this number to say 1 instead of 0.7. and that'll put those front tires out a little farther. We can also change the x-axis here to make the car set out wider, so you can see now the tires are way out away from the body of the car. Another thing we need to change is you'll notice the tires kind of sink into the ground just a little bit there. Get a good look at that. So we need to up the radius on the tires by a little bit. Now we hit play, and we see they don't fall through the ground at all. We have suspension height here, and this is where you really want to change how high your car rides. So for instance, we can change it to 1.1 instead of 1, and now we've got a really high, unstable car. Suspension angle and the tire axis you can mess with if you want, but it is suggested just to leave them as they are. We have some steering here that lets you turn on steering for the back wheels, but that actually won't just automatically get them turning. You have to modify the Powertrain script just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to move on now to Suspension.py. And this is where a lot more customization comes in. So here we have grip. That's pretty self-explanatory. That is the amount of grip of each of the wheels. Compression is the compression of the suspension. So that is how quickly the suspension will stop whenever it hits the ground. So for instance, right now it's at 5, whereas if I set it to 0, you'll see it'll act a little more floaty, I guess. It'll let the car actually bottom out and hit the ground. If I hit 5, you'll see the car doesn't actually even really get close to hitting the ground. Damping is more or less how quickly the car suspension will settle out and start to hold still. So if I do a damping of 0, it'll just sit there and bounce forever. Next up we have stiffness here, which is a pretty obvious thing. And next is roll, which is also pretty obvious. That controls how much the car will roll sideways in the turns. So if we set it really high, you can see the car will tend to try and roll over. So next we're going to move on to the Powertrain.py script. And with this one, I modified the script a little bit to move all of the properties to the top. I also added in a max speed and a turn speed and RE speed thing. So max speed is obvious. It changes how fast the car can go, or the top speed of the car. Max turn changes how far the car tires can turn. So you can do this to change whether you want the car to turn really sharp or maybe not so sharp. Turn speed is how quickly the wheels turn. RE speed is how quickly the wheels will return to their center position. So you can see if I let go of the turning key, the car's front tires automatically recenter. Next up is power. That is the power of the engine whenever it's going forwards. R power is the power in reverse. Then we have brake force, which is the force that the brakes apply, and then e-brake force is the amount of brakes, is the force that the e-brake applies. Now, brake force is applied across all 4 wheels, so you'll need to double this number to get a sort of real brake force. So for instance, I see it is 40 here, but understood it is 80, so it's roughly 80% the force of e-brake force. So by tweaking all of those numbers, you can sort of adjust it to get it just the way you want it. And that's going to be it for today, so thank you guys very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.